From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Danda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. Hey Phil, I'd love to know which superpower you'd like to bring to the table for this particular episode.
Yeah, I think for me, when I thought about superpowers, it was going to be one of three. And it was either going to be creativity. I love creativity. I love the act of creation, imagination. It was curiosity. So like I am an intensely curious person. Like I just love what curiosity brings. But I think the thing that for me encapsulates all of this together is learning. So for me, learning has been a passion for many years. I don't know if you remember when we went on our Seaball training back in the day, and like I loved it because I was learning something new. And for me, learning was do it. Just start building. Let's just see what happens. Let's just learn it as quickly as possible. And I've taken that same spirit through everything I've done ever since. Like I just throw myself into something. I'll try and learn it as quickly as possible and see what happens.
Can I share a story on that, Phil, of when you and I came off our Seaball CRM training? We came back to the office as young graduates and we were told they had employed a bunch of consultants to build this system, and they'd been doing it for about a year and they had nothing to show for it. And I think they spent about £1 million on it. And we were then tasked to deliver a working prototype in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I was just scared stiff. I had no idea where to start. But I remember I was so glad you were with me because it was like, you were just, yeah, let's do it. We can do this. And oh my God, like we managed to crack it and we managed to build this thing, which kind of became the basis for the first ever voice over IP number management system.
I wrote an ActiveX component on the back of Seaball that talked directly to a Lucent soft switch that configured phone numbers directly for Abbey National was the company, which now Santander at the time. Yeah. First ever voice over IP product. And like, so for me, you remember the same experience.
Yeah.
That was like peak learning. It's like, how do we learn this as quickly as possible? Let's go. And I loved it because, as I say, creativity, curiosity, and learning is a creative act, regardless if learning is about memorizing something, which lots of people think that's what learning is. But it's also about experimenting, right? It's about creating new knowledge. It's about understanding the world around you and figuring out how to do that. So for the last 3 years, I literally have been exploring the concept of learning to learn. And I came across this concept maybe 2015, 2016. And when I came across it, all of the stuff that I'd done in the world of Agile, design thinking, lean, it all made so much more sense when I came across this concept of learning to learn. And I read a book by a guy called Benedict Carey, which was How We Learn. And it started looking at actually the chemical processes that happen in the brain. How do synapses work? Like, what do neurons do? How does it all hang together? What's going on in your prefrontal cortex? What's happening in your neocortex? And I have gone to town on that whole topic to the point where I felt like it is essential that everyone learns how they best learn. And that's actually the heart of my new company. So I've been building a digital learning coach, which works with teenagers. So it's focused on 13 to 18-year-olds right now. And it guides them through how to become a great learner. And because so many of them are having to just go through, the exam system, there is a lot about how do you memorize, like how does your brain work? How does your brain work? Not just how does the brain work? And how do you get to the point where you can optimize your own knowledge acquisition, your own skills acquisition in a way that means you can get to wherever you want to go? So this is not about learn a curriculum and then answer a load of tests on it. It could be, but it's much broader than that. And so, yeah, that would be my passion. And I just believe everyone needs to learn how to learn.
Oh, that sounds phenomenal, Phil. My son's just done his 11 plus, and he's probably a little bit too young for that particular platform. But I'd be really curious to know, like, what is some of the thinking there? Could you give us some examples of how the platform would help, say, somebody in that age range to figure out what's their best learning style? And what are those learning styles? Are they these traditional concepts where we say some people are more visual, some people are more kinesthetic? Tell us more about it.
So there is some of that. There is, like, some people are more visual. You do all your drawing and creative, visualization thing. And, one of the beautiful things about our brain is we are wired for visuals, right? Most of the time, 60% of your brain is actually focused on processing visual cues. So if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, close your eyes. Just close your eyes. It actually calms the brain because most of the time your brain is processing visuals, right? Now, so by knowing that, you can actually take someone who says, I'm not a visual learner, and you can go, well, actually, still a load of your processing power in your brain is for visuals. So let's figure out how we can use that. So how they use the platform, we do like a daily piece of coaching wisdom. So we'll just seed a little idea. It might be around motivation. It could be around mindset. But a lot of what we do is around meta skills. And we use the meta skills of learning as the core thing. But it could be like self-discipline learning, but it might also be about how does my memory work, or how do I get the most out of this visual system, or the movement system is also such a core part of your brain. But the interesting thing is the more of your brain you can use in a deliberate way, the more likely you are to remember something. So one of the challenges at school is when kids are told to sit down and shut up and do their own independent learning, right? Because all of a sudden you don't use the neurons associated with your lips and movement because you're sat. You don't activate the neurons in your ears because nobody's saying anything. You don't. So all of a sudden, just by talking something out loud, you learn differently and you activate different neural networks. And so kids don't know this stuff. Actually, adults don't often know this stuff. And there's a really interesting recent study, which was an AI was learning. And this AI had been designed to do lay tables, really silver service, very complex table laying. And they threw in a spanner into this situation, and they said, they made a rule that didn't make any sense to the robot, and they put it into two modes. One mode where they couldn't verbalize what was going on, and another mode where they could verbalize. The mode where the robot was able to verbalize, they made better choices. When they did it without verbalizing, they actually couldn't solve the problem. It's so fascinating that even with artificial intelligence and machine learning, the act of trying to talk to more neurons at the same time made a difference. And I think, by giving tips and tricks, like, have you come across the memory palace?
No.
Like Sherlock Holmes, when he'll go into his memory palace. So this idea is really powerful because we have visual systems in our brain, but also location is really encoded in your brain. Like, I could literally say to anyone now, think about your bedroom when you were a kid, right? You've now got a picture of that in your head. Mm-hmm. Now think about the front door of your house. Walk through that front door, walk up the stairs if you have stairs, go in the kitchen, and you now have a whole visual going on in your mind. That is combination of location, which is really well encoded in your brain, and visuals. Now, if you know how to then build upon that stuff, you can actually memorize other things. And the key thing about memory and learning is you have to build on things you already know. So many kids struggle because they missed out a piece of maths, and then all of a sudden they're doing algebra and they're like, this makes no sense, because They're not building on something they already know. But if you take something that kids are interested in and they know something about, and you build upon top of that, it's firm foundation. So even in a silly way, by building on stuff that you know, like your home, your household, you can actually create new memories in a much more stable and robust way that are easier to access down the line. So I'm very passionate about, that side of learning. But then there's the creative side of learning, which is, how do I experiment? Like, how do I push the boundary? How do I bring all of this together? And that's where kind of that curiosity, creativity, and learning all come together. And I think we need to kind of really boost this in our schools. And one of the things that I don't know if you've ever come across, but there have been studies on learning to learn. And when learning to learn programs are well run in schools, they actually raise average grades by over one whole grade. So, in the GCSE system now, we have a 1 to 9 system.
Mm-hmm.
You can go from a 6 to 7 just by learning to learn.
Wow.
But the really interesting thing here is, for people who are the least well-resourced in our society, so those on free school meals, they actually raise by over 20%. That's 2 whole grades. Now, according to the UK's own statistics, you earn £23,000 more for every grade you go up in a lifetime. So if you take 10 GCSEs and you can grow by 1 average, that's nearly £250,000 over a lifetime. If you can do it by 2, and these are the most underprivileged kids, it's £500,000 over a lifetime. And this is significant money. And the investment in this is still, actually, it reminds me of the early days of Agile, where people are resisting it. Like, it's not a good idea. This is not the thing to focus on. But actually, as you chip away at these, like, I believe learning to learn programs are going to go through a similar life cycle, and we're going to see the adoption of it. And one of the reasons why I started building Mira, which is the learning coach, is because I want everyone to be able to get access to that learning to learn. So there's the free version that anybody can use. There'll be a premium version as well, because we do need to, create an economic model. But like, it's such an important lesson. And I think you can see I'm pretty passionate about it.
Wow. Your passion is just oozing out, Phil. I've never seen you so passionate about something, because I think in the past, when it's other people's stuff, you can get excited about things to a certain extent, but this is your baby and you're really driving this. So from my perspective, sounds like you're doing some phenomenal work with the platform, and I will post the link in the show notes as well, so people can get access to it and go check it out. But could you leave us with some of your favorite resources if people are curious to know more about learning to learn? And you mentioned a book there as well. Are there other resources that people can check out if they want to know more?
I do have a few books, Paddy. Actually, I didn't know you were going to ask me that, but this book, so the 99 studies that every teacher should know, is fascinating, right? It's jam-packed full of good techniques to help kids, to help adults on kind of, the ingredients of learning. So that's one, I would say.
What was that called again, Phil? Just for anyone that...
Yeah, so this is The Science of Learning, 99 studies that every teacher needs to know. It's very good. Another one might be Limitless by a guy called Jim Kwik. It's very good. It's jam-packed full of knowledge. But then probably the most prolific learning to learner at the moment is a lady called Barbara Oakley. She has a number of books on the topic, and she's actually been writing for teachers so that they can integrate it into their own classrooms. This one was a Mind for Numbers. It's specifically for maths and science. And, lots of people have challenges with maths and science, but it introduces you to brain science. It introduces you to kind of like how you might think about it. And it's jam packed full of tips and tricks on how to learn things that maybe some kids struggle with, the more abstract concepts. And the reason why I have all of these books is because we are distilling all of that wisdom into 5-minute bite-sized chunks so kids can consume it at their own pace as well, because it's so full of wisdom. But the likelihood of kids reading, hundreds of books is quite low. So we're trying to package it up in a way where they can get access in a on a phone in a format that they're probably more used to, but in a way that they can apply to their lives on a daily basis.
Oh, fantastic. I think I need that last book because I'm hopeless at maths. So I might be buying that one straight after this particular episode. Phil, it's been a pleasure as always. And I really appreciate all of your insights. I think it's certainly opened up a lot of new doors in my mind that I need to explore. And actually, in a way, things that I thought or I took for granted. Like who would have ever helped someone learn to learn? You think it should be just a natural thing that we all do, but actually I see the value in what you're doing. So thank you so much for that. Last word from you before we wrap up.
Yeah, like actually, there's a few great quotes in these books, and some people walk around thinking they're not good learners. Some people walk around going they don't have a good memory. Some people walk around thinking I'm not a maths person. And the thing that I love about all of this is actually you just haven't been shown how to do it. And so for me, there is a knowledge acquisition that is intensely personal to you that would be different to what it is for me. And we do have to help our next generation and ourselves figure out what works for us best. And I really believe in this idea of self-determination, and the development of your own self-belief and your own self-efficacy is the technical term. And I think it really comes down to just figuring out how this piece of grey matter in your head works, and it helps you get to wherever you want to go.